So that's a good thing. And you don't have to ask your respondents in the survey about what characteristics of the other people, because you interview everyone. So all this difficult questions like what do you think that your friend thinks, you don't have to do that. Now, how do we collect these kind of data? And there are basically three main approaches that have been used in the past, and I want to very quickly go through them because all of them also face different challenges and advantages. So the first design is basically this one. Oh, by the way, all my examples are in Dutch. Sorry, I collect data in the Netherlands, but you get the idea. So this is basically a question asking with which classmates kids spend their breaks. And so in this design, kids would get separately to their questionnaire a list with all the names of their classmates and numbers attached to the names, and then they could just put in the numbers down here. So can I ask like, who are your friends? With whom do you spend time? Whom do you dislike? These kind of questions, and they can always put the numbers in there. The other design, and this is what I mainly do, is where we print the names of the kids or the network members directly on the questionnaire, and we have checkboxes next to the names where kids simply check their friends. Would be the first question, or the second question would be with whom do you spend time outside of school. And so the numbers here are only for us to inputting the data again in the computer. It's not really necessary for the kids. For them, it's just easy, like making a check here or a check there, who their friends are. I mean, obviously, this is limited in the sense that you can only do this for a rather small network, like a school class, because you have to print all the names on the questionnaire. Well, with the number list that I had up, you can have like several pages next to it. And then the last design that I've used in the past is for if you have a digital questionnaire. We work here with these open boxes. Well, it's a screenshot, but it's very difficult to see. But we ask you basically who are your friends in your school grade, so the entire school grade. And so they could start typing in the names, and then a scroll down list would appear. So if they typed in A, then all the names with A would come up. And if they put in one more letter, then it would be shortened to that. And that also worked quite well to get a sense of the network, and you don't need these big lists. But again, it's required that you have the list of names up front. So what are the problems that we face when we will do these kind of things? Well, the biggest problems that we're having are ethical concerns here, right? Because if I have the names of the kids and I have to print them on the questionnaire, the data are not, I cannot really process them anonymously anymore. So what we do, and so in the Netherlands, it's the privacy laws are not as strict as in Germany, so we can actually get at least lists with the first names of the kids, and print them on the questionnaire, which makes our life much easier. And then we'll normally, we always destroy the one file that links the names to the ID numbers of the kids after our data are collected. Another approach that's been done in Germany more often is that you ask the schools to provide these name lists. So the number list that I had, the very first method is then the only one you can use, where the names, numbers are printed next to the names, and this is on a separate page. And so you can ask the schools to prepare these lists, and you as a researcher never get it. So you don't know which number is associated with what name. Of course, there's a practical concern here. Like, first of all, convince the schools, make sure that they have the name list on time. And that's something that might work if you have very few schools in which you collect data with whom you are in touch. But for example, at the moment, as we speak, I have a study in the field in Amsterdam in 30 primary schools. And it's just such a hassle to be in touch with 30 schools. And then also asking them to, I cannot imagine a nightmare to ask them also to prepare the lists for me and make sure that they are there then. So that there is a problem, most certainly, and that's something you have to discuss with the ethical board of your institution when you do this kind of things. The other problem that we're having is that we are collecting data, may collect data on people that didn't give us permission to do so. So that's what we call secondary subjects. So if you imagine in your network, there are some people who refuse to participate in the study, but you ask everyone in the network, who are your friends, for example. So you collect data on people that didn't give you permission to do this in the study. And that's particularly problematic if you ask questions like in school classes, who's bullying you, or who smokes, or who drinks alcohol, these kinds of things. So there's a problem. Again, the only completely clean solution to this would be to ask the schools to remove the names of these kids up front. But then you get biased data, right? Because if you imagine that there would be one really popular kid in a school class everybody's friends with, and this kid is not on your name list, so it cannot be nominated, and there's really an important link missing in your network. I don't have a solution for this. So these are the challenges that we are really facing. So this is something that every time I collect data, I have to go really into discussion with our ethics boards to decide whether or not for this particular study we think this is a real concern. And normally, if you ask about stuff like friendships or some unproblematic network questions, it's something that I always get through with, and I just don't study bullying anymore to avoid that problem. So this is the ethical concerns. Practical concerns with all of these methods are, for example, that if you have the copying numbers list, it could be that this method is more prone to mistake because kids have like a separate sheet of paper with the numbers, and they have to go forth and back to put the right numbers into the answer buckets. And so this increased the cognitive burden, I'd say, and could lead to underreporting of names. While the checkbox methods could have the opposite problem, lead to over-reporting of name, because it's just so easy to just click everywhere. And it's actually also something that I see repeatedly in these networks. If you use this checkbox method, there are always some kids who nominate everybody as being their best friend in the school class. And the other problem here is always that if we request the name list from the schools, most often, if we have time, we ask them to give them to us already months in advance. And then they're not up to date. When you come to a school class, a kid is missing on the list, or some did already leave the class. So this is a problem. And here's actually, I'm not aware of any research that ever compared these kind of methods when it comes like, is it really leading to underreporting here? Is this leading to overreporting? So this is one of the things that, as far as I know, we just don't know whether one of these methods is problematic or not. So that's something that we really need to research on. One other question that you have to ask yourself if you collect these kind of data is whether you allow kids to nominate as many people as they want or only a limited number. So you could say, like, who are your 3 best friends in either methods, or you could just allow them to nominate as many as they want. And there has been a little research looking into differences between these 2 methods. So on the one hand, you could say, like, if you only allow them to nominate the 3 best friends, this could go quicker if you have a lot of network questions. But then again, every decision becomes more important, like whom of your friends do you check, so that might actually take longer. And we might miss some important relationships. Now, if we allow every relationship to be reported, people say that we have maybe better ecological validity in the sense that we don't miss anyone. But then we get the problem with some people nominate everyone. So what does this mean? And there have been very few, but at least there have been a number of studies that compared these 2 methods and looked at the data quality that we get out of it. And so there's one paper that says that the unlimited nomination leads to more reliable sociometric scores. So that might be a reason to go for this. And there's another study that appeared recently that said there are less skewed nominations. So people do not only nominate the most popular person in the classroom, but more if you allow them more to nominate more. And it leads to a stronger predictive validity for a few of the typical questions that we ask. Everything is related to social status, but it doesn't really lead to better data quality for other questions. But all of these studies are based on really strange samples, put it like this. So there's nothing representative in there. There are really small sample sizes on which these conclusions are based. So I think there's also a lot of questions out there that are really being answered, and a lot of room for more research into that. And so this is basically my agenda for you to help us answer these kind of questions. So we need real research that compares the different name list methods that are presented to you and whether they lead to different results or not. We need more research into this. Should we have allow unlimited or limited nomination, and particularly use better data than the few studies that are out there currently that looked into these methodological problems. And in my opinion, we also need a real new innovation in when it comes to collecting whole network data. And I'm not going into this right now. I first want to talk about ego-centered networks, and maybe this gives you an idea of what such an innovation could be. Because when it comes to ego-centered networks, there has actually been quite some development in the last couple of years. So let me move the water. So ego-centered networks, I already described it to you. Generally, you start this kind of data collection by a question where you ask your respondent in the survey to identify a certain number of network of people in their network. That's what we call with a name generator question. And then you ask follow-up questions about the people in the network, and these questions are called name interval questions. And that's actually something that works fairly well. And well, people think that it works very well in face-to-face surveys, so it has been done quite a lot in big representative surveys as well. A lot of research has been on these name-generated questions, the questions that produce your network. And so this is the most popular question that was developed by Ron Burke for the General Social Survey in the US, and has been used over and over again, asking people who are the people with whom you discussed most important issues, to get a sense of the core network of people. And there has been a lot of research in what are the problems with these questions, and I don't want to spend too much time on it because this is fairly well researched. I just want to mention the two biggest problems. The first is that people misinterpret these kind of questions very often. So when you ask this question, you get a lot of names of doctors instead of spouses, for example. And so people have suggested to overcome this problem that it's always good to use more than one of these name-generated questions. Ask for different types of relationship you can have with people to identify those that are most important. And then the other important problem with these kind of questions is the so-called recall bias, that people forget a lot of people in the network. And there have been a couple of suggestions, also very recent ones, first, that you should always probe different contexts, like with whom do you discuss important issues at work, with whom do you discuss important issues at home, and so on. A recent paper suggested that you should ask your survey respondents to get their cell phone out and go through their contact list on the cell phone to make sure that they didn't overlook anyone. And then if you have longitudinal data, you can use the answers that they gave in the previous wave to match to what they just said, just to make sure, like, if they don't mention a person, then you can ask a follow-up question like, hey, last time you said I was this person, don't you have contact with this person? So there has been a lot of research on this. There's less research on the name, well, there's also a lot of research on name interpreted question mark, but there have been more innovations when it comes to like how should you ask questions about the network. But the first concern that a lot of people have, if I don't interview the people of the network contacts, but I just ask you about what you think about them, that there might be a mismatch between what you think those people have characteristics, and what those people would say for themselves. And that has been a lot of research here in Mannheim in the 1990s and early 2000s from people at SUMA at the time, GESIS now, into these kind of questions, like for which kind of questions do we see very low correspondence between what people say in these proxy questions and what, if we interviewed their contacts, what those people say themselves. But this is actually not such a big concern for people who do social network analysis, that there's a mismatch, because most of the time we are more interested in how your perception of your network affects you. And then it's not really so much relevant whether your perception is accurate or not. Even though I'm not aware of any study that compared this actually, whether it's your perception that's more important or the actual network. So there's also room for future research. What is a big concern in this literature is that asking these questions, these kind of surveys, is incredibly boring for participants. So if you have ever completed for yourself an ego-centered network questionnaire, it's just mind-boggling how much time you spend going over the same question over and over again. Because for everyone in your network, you have to answer, how close do you feel to Toby? How close do you feel to John? How close do you feel to Dave? And it's even worse if we ask for the structure of the network, if you want to know who knows whom, because then we have to go through every pair of person in your network, and this is just, it's so annoying. So there have been a number of studies that showed that this has real life consequences. So in CAPI, and so in service where we have an interviewer presence, there have been a number of studies that documented interview effects. Like the interviewers learn that the more names I write down, the longer the interview takes. So they tend to like leave names out. So okay, let's leave the interview out, go do it self-administered, go into online in the world of online service, also because much more is done now online. But there have also been studies that show that we see more break-offs, smaller networks in online service, and also other indicators that we actually get poorer quality of data in online service. One of them is that the network is denser, so that more people apparently know each other when you do it online. And this has to do with the fact that there's more what they call mechanical clicking, so that people just, if you get the same question over and over again, they just click yes, 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 yes to get through with it. And then it appears that everybody knows each other, but this is not really true. So since we're moving into the online world, we see this. There has now been some research into looking so how should we do it then to avoid these problems? And there are a number, very few of best practice recommendations out there now for online service of social ego-centered networks. The most important one, I think, is that you should ask your questions in the question-wise format and not in the auto-wise format. So if you assume that you have 10 follow-up questions about the network, it's better to ask the first questions about all people in the network and then ask the second questions about all people in the network, and not ask the 10 questions for the first person and then the 10 questions for the second person, because also your interviewees learn how long the question is and then ask them. What you read also a lot in this literature is that you should motivate your respondents by making the survey more attractive, with graphical features, more fancy. But there hasn't really been research into that up until a study that I will talk about in a few minutes. And then the last is kind of obvious. You should reduce the burden for respondents, so have fewer of these network interpreted questions to make them more interesting. So we thought, this John and I thought, that we are really smart and come up with a much better idea, or an additional good idea. So we thought, so there's this whole movement in human-computer interaction, what's called personal informatics. The idea that you motivate people to participate in your research by giving them the chance to learn something about themselves. So we thought, maybe it's a good idea if we put in a survey experiment this sentence in there where we tell people that, well, first you complete a network survey, and afterwards we tell you how similar you are to the average American. So you can learn something about yourself. And we thought, well, then make people really happy. And it didn't. What we actually found, it reduced motivation. So people were really annoyed by us. At least for some, and also the data quality was poor in our survey. And this was particularly true for people who got what we now call bad news, basically. So people who were told that they are different from the average American. So that seems to be not such a great idea as we thought. Also, I mean, the main problem is that you don't know upfront what is bad news. So some people might be annoyed that they are different. Other people might be annoyed that they are just as everyone else. So, but luckily we came up with an actual good idea. So we designed a new software to collect ego-centered networks data, what we call GESIS. And instead of talking about it, I'll rather show you. I have a little movie. So this is, whoa, okay, wait, I'll manage. I'll see it. How do we do this? It's coming. Oh, that was too far. Oh boy. Well, the suspension is killing me, right? Okay, let's see. Can I start it now? Okay, this is actually GESIS. So it's basically an online survey. This is a name-generated question. So if you can't read it, it doesn't really matter too much. It's basically a question asking who are most important people for you. And so people can enter the names of the people, and while they do this, there's a picture of their network is populated in here. And now they answer all the follow-up questions by interacting with this picture. So this is a question asking like, who is the woman in the network? And then we'll color also the men in there. People could still change things. And now instead of so this is a question like, what is the ethnicity of everyone in the network? And instead of asking, what's the ethnicity of Sarah? What's the ethnicity of Nuri? We have these little answer buckets at the bottom, and people can just drag and drop the names of the people in there. And if necessary, we can also have some follow-up questions. In this case, she said that Steve was had multiple races, so we can still have this. This is a similar question asking like, how often do you talk to everyone? And it's difficult to see, but there are actually answer buckets in here. They're different colored. It's just, it looks as if it was white. So I think this is the most important innovation. You're asking like, who knows whom in the network. So instead of asking for every diet in the network, you can just draw these little lines between the people, and that way indicate that they know each other. Well, there are a number of more traditional questions that you can ask as well afterwards. And now I have to figure out how to come back to my presentation. Okay, let's see. Yes, so we ran also an evaluation study for this thing, and what we found, so treatment is here, people who saw GENSI, and control group was someone who's responds to our traditional ego-centered network questionnaire. And you can see for these different indicators of enjoyment that there was always, people liked it significantly more than a traditional survey. So they were more happy with this new tool. And then we also looked at the data quality indicators. And when it came to speed and concurrent validity of the networks that we are getting through GENSI, there was no difference between the traditional questionnaire and GENSI. So it doesn't improve anything, but also we did get data of equal quality, which is also a nice thing. But when it came to network density and affirmative answering, we actually saw that density was lower in GENSI. And if you remember, this was one of the indicators that other people said that this is actually a problem in online surveys because people just click yes, yes, yes for the question like who knows who. And that's also what we found, that this was less in the GENSI version and much more in the traditional version. So we take this as a sign, I'm not sure of course, but we take it as a sign that GENSI, people not only like it more, but it might actually produce better data. At least we seem to lose nothing when we do it. And so GENSI is open source. First of all, you can use it. You can download it from my website if you want it. And other research groups have done so by now. So this is an example from the University of Antwerp, where people in the communications department used it for in-depth interviews. So they had in-depth interviews with journalists, and they came in there with 13-inch tablets and had those journalists talk to them about their network, but then also have GENSI, like use it to have a picture of the network, and then also have used it to give information about their sources, those journalist sources, to get a better understanding of what's going on. And I have another movie for which I don't have time now, but I can show you later if you're interested, of the University of Groningen. They are using it at the moment to collect data on really big networks. They want 25 people, information on 25 people. So they also modified GENSI in the sense that you can now use it for really huge networks and still get sensible data out of it. I thought it wasn't possible, but it looks actually quite nice. But okay, so before I'll let you go, just to mention there, obviously I'm advertising, but there are other tools out there as well. So these are a little bit older things. So EgoWeb was the first software that was available, and it still is, but it's dated. There are better things now. The second two. So I mean, you can look at, I'm happy to share the slides, so you don't have to talk about everything now. These two are actually quite nice, but they require that your service respondents give you their Facebook password or their email password. And yes, so you see the problem there. Anonymized Ego Center is a really cool tool, I think, as well, where that one allows your respondents to interact much more with the bigger networks, so draw lines around cliques and these kind of things. So if this is something that you're interested in, this software might be for you. And then there are two tools that are real exciting alternatives to GENSI as well. The first one is called OpenEddy. So this is a screenshot of how they have. So the idea is also similar. Instead of the answer buckets at the bottom, they have here answer buckets. This is just one type of question that they're having. If you go to the website of OpenEddy, they have really old examples out there. It looks not as it is right now. So and I don't think they have released this software yet, but you could try to get in touch with them if you're interested in using this. And then another tool that looks really cool, Network Canvas or Net Canvas. So this is examples that they have on their website, and they have a nice video as well, like how it looks and explaining it. And I actually thought this looks much cooler than GENSI, so why not use it? But now they announced on the website that they expect that the public release will be in 2020. So that is disappointing. But well, OpenEddy, I think you can get earlier. Anyway, so just to sum up, what are the challenges when it comes to ego-centered networks? So first of all, the few best practice advices that are out there are also based just for the whole networks on really small non-representative samples. Which again, questions like to what extent is this true? And also there aren't that many best practice advices out there. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Then the mode effects. So we compared our new tool just to another online survey, but it would also be interesting to compare it to a face-to-face survey. And I think also use some of the other tools that are out there and are available now to compare them to each other and maybe find out which tool works best or which tool respondents like most. And I think one approach also to tackle the interview effects that we see in face-to-face surveys to combine CASI and CAPI, where you basically would have the interviewer hand the computer to the respondent for the network generator question or name generator question, and then have the name interpreter questions in a regular interview, or use such a tool completely for the network part so that the interviewer is not involved in collecting data about the social network. I'm a little over time, but this is all that I had to tell you today. If you're interested in GENSI, if you want to use it, you can download it from my website. It's in JavaScript, so it's source code because we didn't have any funding to get it in a fancy user interface. But as I said, people using it in other universities and advancing the code, I think this is a cool thing as well. So I think if you're interested in really big networks, you could also easily get in touch with the guys at Groningen and get the new version of GENSI. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, Tobias, for your perfect timing for this enjoyable talk, insightful talk. So the floor is now up to you if there are any questions in your hand, any comments, any ideas for your own applications. Yes.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. So you mentioned this Groningen group application of 20 people in the network or even more.
Do you want to see it?
Yes.
Okay, so I have now figured out again how to get.
By the way, you also have some clapping from the online audience.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. Okay, so this is. So I see it already. Now I have to get it on your screen. Oh God. It's smaller. Jesus, that's so big. How big is it?
If you track it to the upper boundary, it will maximize.
This way? Also? Right?
Or maybe.
Yeah, I work with a Mac, so I have really no idea how to do it. Okay, so this is in Dutch again, but you're now very used to Dutch, right? So this is their network generator, name generator question, and they're now asking for, give us 25 names. You have to give us 25 names. And so their network, the network looks like this in this new application. They cut it short always, which is really great in this movie. So now the follow-up question is like, who is a man in your network. And again, you can click on the names, but now different things happen. And everything is shaking. So, and here, that would be, I think this application would be really nice also for service satisficing to studying, because now we have for everyone to indicate how old they are. And now again, the question of who has children in your network. So the same idea with the as with the gender question, and now so this is a follow-up question. They first asked how many children who has children now, how many, and now they're using the answer buckets again for how close are you to those people. But of course, it's challenging for 25 people over and over. The nice thing is actually about the network structure, which I hope will come in the next slide. Yes, so this is the network. And so now they're asking for every person in the network, who does Anne know, with whom does Anne have contact? And so again, they can generate these lines, but then it's only for one person in the network, and then once you're done with Anne, she disappears. And the next one, once you're done with Berta, then she will also disappear, and so the network gets smaller and smaller. I mean, the question is, how good is the data that you're getting? I don't know, but if you really, for your research question, need 25 people, you might get better data that way than with, I don't know, a paper questionnaire or a face-to-face questionnaire. When they contacted me and said that we want to do that with 25 people, I said, you're crazy. Like, well, we don't care. All right. We'll see.
Tobias, you mentioned before the problems with the name lists and school classes. Why do you need this list? Why don't you ask open questions and let them name the friends or something else?
Well, so that would be also an option, but in this case, I mean, it wouldn't solve the ethical problem, right? Because we would still need to know who are you, so what's your name, and then we can link to each other. Right? So but it's true, we wouldn't, in a sense, we wouldn't need the name list, but then you get other problems like spelling mistakes, so you don't really know whom they nominated, and then we have a lot of classes where we have kids with the same name, then make sure that they put for those also the last name in there. And it takes just much longer if you think about how long it takes to write down all the names. And we are getting in the same problems that we have with the ego-centered networks, the forgetting. The nice thing about the name list is that at least you can go through the entire list. So that I think that would lead to more problems than we have right now.
Tobias, thank you for your very interesting and informative presentation. I don't know much about network analysis, but the question I had for you was on the ethical point. And you said that researchers are shying away from studying things like bullying and things. Isn't that really just an easy, cheap option? Like, aren't the most difficult things the most interesting things? So what I'm interested in, I know you said that you don't yourself have a particular solution to the problem, but where is the state of research on that and investigation into that? Because it just seems to me the easy option that we're saying, well, we don't really have a solution on that, so to get through the ethics board, we just don't study it. So I'm just interested as a more general question where things are on that.
Yes, so I made this comment mainly because I don't study bullying, just period. Mm-hmm. I mean that's just the thing. So there, I think this is one reason why we see the biggest network of researchers on these kind of topics in certain countries. So the Netherlands, I mean, network analysis is a big thing in the Netherlands anyways, but since we don't have very critical privacy laws there, a lot of the bullying research takes place in the Netherlands and also in Finland, where it's also much easier to collect these kind of data. I know that it's really difficult in Germany to collect this kind of data. So we have experts sitting here in the front row who know more about that. But I know that for one of the big studies that was done in the UK, in Sweden, in Germany, and in the Netherlands, they wanted to include a question just whom do you dislike, something like that. And they weren't allowed to do so in Germany, for example. In the Netherlands, it wasn't a problem. And then they switched the wording. Is this question at all in that data? I don't know. So it's now turned into who's sometimes mean to you, which is not the same connotation. And they could not ask for bullying at all in Germany. But I'm not sure if it could be that in some. The problem is just if you don't get permission to do it, you just don't have permission to do it. But I think this is one of the reasons why we see it in certain countries more of this type of research where it's easier to conduct it.
Thank you again for this
Welcome.
talk, and it gave a lot of ideas to think about.
Thank you.